Coming up on today's wrestling news, major cuts are expected for WWE, including talent.
We've got a big update on Matt Riddle's WWE status.
A Rave-Reviewed tag team is gone from WWE.
And Impact 1000 features multiple TNA surprises and honours company legends.
TNA! I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Michael Hamflett.
And this is the news. So, the news we sort of all anticipated and dreaded to start off with.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the merger, UFC, WWE, TKO Holdings, is it?
Yeah.
With that terrifying new image of Vince McMahon
boy.
on there. The merger's happened, obviously, completed fully this week, and we've already seen some sort of staff from WWE getting their releases, although some of them are like, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to let you go with the $5 million bonus.
Oh, Frank Riddick, yeah. That is golden goodbye.
But the news we've kind of been dreading has come through today from House of Wrestling, reporting that not only are office staff going in workforce reductions, apparently they're happening today, some of WWE's main roster and NXT talent could be going to. Major cuts are expected. The report stated that they were not explicitly told whether the cuts would be coming this week or in the future, but they had been planned for some time, and it's just one of those things that we always hate to hear about. They always seem to come out of nowhere, but this one, I suppose, is slightly more anticipated.
Yeah, it's weird though, isn't it? Because we both did and didn't anticipate the wrestler side of this. The office staff, and we talked about this at the time, didn't we? The staff that you'll never know, and you'll never know the important work they did. Faceless and nameless to us as wrestling fans have been told to stay home today while their jobs are decided upon by the absolute cowards making the calls. Losers. It's the worst. That is the worst. But yeah, the next line of this, which we weren't sure when Nick Khan said about saving multi-millions, like would include wrestlers or not. Now it seems like we've got the confirmation. It's still a big old roster. Feels smaller than it used to. Like WWE does feel like it has a slightly leaner roster than the warehouse days. But yeah, it's just going to be a nervy time, I guess, isn't it? If you're a WWE or NXT star at the moment.
Yeah, it's just going to be one of those ones where you sense, we had quite a few of them over the last few years. It's going to come in a flood, isn't it? Of just, this person's gone, this person's gone, this person's gone. But we don't know whether that is going to happen, like we say, today, further down the line. Maybe they'll take time to assess the roster and who they need where or what have you. Or, as we saw previously, maybe they'll just go on that Nick Khan spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Everyone below this line, get rid of them.
It's a shame. Like, it did feel like we were entering into a bit more of a, especially with AEW, like entering into more of an era of contracts just coming to an end. There's no harm in that. No. I don't have a problem with wrestlers changing sides, with wrestlers seeing out their deals and moving on. That's probably the way it should happen.
Yeah.
It's the fact that people are getting cut and losing their jobs, maybe if they were in the middle of like a 5-year term or something. That's where I think the sympathy comes in. Just for anybody that assumes, well, it's just business, part of it. They sign deals and they expect to be paid out for those deals, and it's a shame that some of those get terminated on a seemingly annual basis for a company that makes billions every year.
Regardless whether it's WWE or AEW, I think if you say to someone, we're signing you till 2025, well, that's a commitment on both sides, because they've said, do not try and get picked up by any other company before the X year or whatever, but also, you're with us until then, unless a big offer comes along from somewhere else, and then you'll be taken care of anyway.
Yes, it is a strange industry.
We'll keep you posted on that very depressing news.
Yeah, and sort of kind of related to that, we've got a pretty big update on Matt Riddle's WWE status. Of course, earlier this week, it was reported that he was removed from television for all upcoming events as well, not just the televised Raw, due to an illness. But of course, that followed. I'm not saying that to sort of undermine it.
Yeah.
That was the report from WWE internally that it was an illness. But this was following a story that broke thanks to Matt Riddle's Instagram that was then deleted, where he'd accused a JFK worker. I don't know if it was like airport police, but a uniformed officer at the airport, of alleged sexual harassment. He then deleted that and just said, updated with, I'm just glad to be leaving JFK, but by this point it was out there and there was an internal investigation being done by the Port Authority Police, of course, because that's a very serious allegation. There were conflicting reports from sources within JFK that they dealt with Matt Riddle. He was alleged to maybe in a slightly altered state, but the way that they'd left it, they were surprised that he'd come forward. So it was all quite very ugly and controversial. You can see our full report on the news from Monday, as well as all the stuff on the website to go into the kind of the grimy details of all of that. But the story today from PW Insider is that Riddle is scheduled to be back on next week's Raw. He's obviously involved in a storyline with Drew McIntyre as tag team partners at the moment, which could be leading to McIntyre's heel turn. They've kind of folded in the New Day onto that. But yeah, like a bit of a surprise, really, that story comes out when WWE saw it enough to take him off all the shows. I guess while the airport did their investigation, maybe WWE wanted to ask some questions and find out some stuff. Maybe they're content with what they found to get him back on Raw. So we'll just see how that story develops.
Yeah, in-ring, phenomenal talent, without question. I think he's had his issues outside of the ring for quite some time now. And
controversial figure, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say. But on his day, I think one of the best wrestlers that WWE could put out there.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Like, talent, for better and worse, and drawing power and all of these things on the top trumps card will often trump some of the stuff that goes on outside the ring. You know, it's one of those things that there's no real right answer for any of this. I know personally what I would do, maybe you do, and maybe you watching would, but the company will make its decisions based on their own metrics, probably independent of a lot of that stuff that you see. It's up business.
Right, let's move on to a story that I've got slightly mixed emotions about, because you know my love for the former grizzled young veterans. Now, or just now, previously I suppose now, the Giant in NXT.
One more for the road for the
Rip Fowler and Jagger Reed, that's what they were called. Yeah. I could never remember that. Zach Gibson and James Drake. There's been speculation for a while that they were going to be leaving WWE. I think it was Drake put on social media, this is when our contract's going to be up and that's when we're going, basically.
It was over WrestleMania time, wasn't it? Like, we're going to be gone then.
Saw them in an IHOP.
Yeah. What a great spot for you.
Yeah.
Of all those sort of wrestlers on your bingo when you were over there.
I love them.
They're your face.
I think Zach Gibson is one of the most underrated promos in wrestling.
Legit one of the WWE matches of the year this year. Go back and watch the Steel Cage match for the Crew.
And I always do this, so I'm going to do it again. I always forget to say, James Drake is phenomenal in the ring as well. Another really underrated talent. Pushed into, and this also applies for Joe Gacy in my opinion as well, pushed into just a weird cult thing that really didn't showcase the best of their talents. Joe Gacy's great.
1 million people turned on Tuesday looking for the Grizzly Young Vets and they just saw a tree instead.
And Ava, she hasn't got a surname, she's the Rock's daughter. But yeah, Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio has reported that Gibson and Drake's contracts have expired. They previously, as I mentioned, asked for their WWE release on April 3rd. But then they had to say, we're going to have to wait till our contract runs out in October. But it's happened now. Potentially, completely speculation on my behalf. If they've asked for their release and WWE thinking about making cuts, you could potentially put those two things together. But I don't know about that. That's just pure speculation on my behalf.
But again, a contract coming to an end.
Yes.
No problem with that.
And I'm going to be a complete hypocrite now because I sit here on a weekly basis and say, for God's sake, AEW, stop signing everyone who's a wrestler. But Tony Khan, sign both of these guys. They are brilliant as a tag team. They're brilliant as individuals. I hope really genuinely for the best for them going forward because I just think there's so much potential there, and it has been for years.
Yeah, the independent scene isn't exactly fertile at the moment, but you imagine that Gibson and Drake will get their dates, will get their appearances. I wouldn't rule AEW off the table, even if it is initially just a short-term thing. We've seen plenty of indie standouts come in and at least get a go. Some do better than others, some stick around longer. If you look at like the likes of the Iron Savages getting a tag title shot this weekend on Collision.
God, FTR versus the Grizzly Young Veterans would bang.
Bang, it would totally rule. The Outrunners kind of achieved a kind of cult acclaim as a result. There are loads of spaces.
Youngest men alive, aren't they?
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
There's tons of spaces in the industry that wrestlers like them can occupy. Ring of Honor would, I think they would probably draw eyes initially.
That'd be a
good
initial thing for them, maybe.
Impact Wrestling, which we'll talk about in a minute, kind of makes the best of talent old and new.
Yeah.
There is, I don't know where yet, but there is definitely space for these two.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you'd like to see them doing next. Maybe they could team up with Kip Sabian and Anthony Ogogo and get a new British invasion. Where was that again?
It was in TNA. Oh, that would actually be good.
You're a huge TNA fan.
I love TNA. Get Aldis and Williams back in the Union flag tights and they can fight the Grizzly Young Vets. There can be some sort of north-south divide thing. Gibson can come out with his Liverpool shirt. You know what that would be good on? Impact 1001. Because Impact 1000 took place last night. It was taped earlier this week, but we didn't want to give away the spoilers. And it aired featuring basically one half of a double taping, which was kind of as much a celebratory episode about Impact's past, as much as using some of the wrestlers of today. There's a huge list that I'm going to go through. If you're a sort of nostalgic TNA fan, or I don't know, maybe I want to call it a TNA survivor, because it was rough at times. times. For the original WWE alternative, there's some names that will warm your cockles like it did mine this morning. Last night on the show, there were appearances, if you haven't checked it out, for the likes of Gail Kim, Scott D'Amore, The Beautiful People, Angelina Love and Velvet Sky, Awesome Kong, her assistant Raisha Saeed, Mickie James, of course, only there as recently as 6 months ago, pretty much, as Impact Women's Champion. Eric Young, who's just returned, not just
Good
to Impact.
first name.
Yeah, indeed. Not young Eric Young, who hasn't just returned to Impact Wrestling, he's returned from the dead recently on television.
He was in WWE and not used for a bit.
And they killed him on Impact and he's back alive.
Yeah.
America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris and James Storm, reunited as a team.
Oh.
We are one step away from Bobby Roode getting back in there for beer money. Shark Boy working his Stone Cold gimmick and agreeing to help Santino as an authority figure on next week's show. It's all cooking. As well as that, Team 3D were in action and indeed victorious for the first time as a team for years. Nice for Devon to get to wrestle in front of his family when he retired because of health issues a few years ago. There was Chris Sabin in the main event winning his 10th X Division title, having main evented the very first episode of Impact 1,000 episodes ago. And in my favourite, go and find this out on, check this out on Twitter, there's a lot of Impact nostalgia kicking around today. Kazarian and Tracy Brooks, of course, real life husband and wife, defeated Eddie and Alicia Edwards in a mixed tag match, after which Kazarian and Tracy brought their son Rebel into the ring, and then Kazarian encouraged everybody to look at the screen, where as a shoot surprise, they played a video where Tracy's going to be inducted into the Impact Hall of Fame in October. She had no idea. She burst into tears. There's a husband, there's a son. It's like lovely, genuinely lovely. Like, go and check that out. A really warm and enjoyable sort of like celebration. TNA nostalgia is tricky, to say the least. Some of it doesn't hold up well. And I don't just mean from a problematic point of view, I mean from a wrestling booking point of view. But if you were there, it means quite a lot, weirdly, to you. Anyway, there's a lot of things to go back and look. And because it was a double taping, there was stuff set up for next week. Some of those knockouts that I mentioned were setting up a 5-on-5, like old and new mixed like knockouts extravaganza. That's for next week. And as I say, Shark Boy will be helping Santino Marella as the assistant to the director of authority or something like that. I can't pretend that I watch Impact every week, but this was kind of must-see for me, and I'm assuming maybe fans of a certain era will enjoy this one too.
Yeah, a hell of a milestone for them, regardless of
huge
everything that they've been through over the years. Come on, reverse battle royal. One of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
1,000 episodes, man.
But how am I going to get in the ring? Just slide in.
Just get in.
Just get in.
Our friend Chris Bay, by the way, won a Feast or Fired briefcase. And the whole deal with that is you've got to get that briefcase down, but then you've got to get out the ring as well. Yeah. So in order to do that, when all the wrestlers suddenly surround him, he just did this wicked flip dive, landed on the people on the outside and got away. I hope that's for a title shot and not for losing his job. That's the high risk, high reward of the case. Shout out, Chris.
Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE. Of course, you want to get in touch with us and pick our brains that are often actually showcased on the What Culture Wrestling podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. And that is going to be able to be watched soon. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe. What Culture Wrestling podcast on YouTube. More stuff in the coming days, weeks, months for that sort of thing. First question today comes from Alex Brugel.
Legend.
I apologise, Alex. I always wonder if I've got your name right.
Regular friend on the streams is Alex.
Yeah. Just hear me out. Joe beats Max in New York and goes on a monster heel run with the title, whilst MJF has to do the babyface redemption run to get the title back.
Don't hate it, you know. I saw this. It might have been Alex that pitched this on X last night, but I saw this somewhere else as well. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense because of the time of year. It's gone very quiet on the old War of 2024, hasn't it? Now, whether or not we're just left to assume that all things have been tied up.
He's definitely re-signed,
and
doesn't
MJF is staying put. But it would be interesting if they were going to lean back on that, and MJF wanting now as a babyface to get signed and get the belt in a total like inverse method of how they would have originally promoted that. So yeah, I don't think Joe's the one, but I could see this. Like, I'm increasingly starting to think that like Adam Cole will be the one to take it from him as he surrounds himself with the Kingdom and maybe like and Roddy, obviously, and maybe returning Kyle O'Reilly. Ooh. It would feel very NXT World Champion Adam Cole to have the belt and suddenly a big gang around him. Like, I'm starting to visualise that, but it's only a hop, skip and a jump away from Joe.
Yeah, Alex also mentioned that he should go through some of his toughest matches from when, quote, he was being a dick to the entire roster.
It's kind of what they're doing with Jey Uso on Raw.
Yeah.
Nobody likes him because he spent so long attacking them as part of the
It's understandable, yeah. They're not just like, oh, welcome back, Jay.
Uh-huh.
I also saw someone talk about this and suggest yeah, Joe beats MJF because MJF's got a bad neck. That'd be quite clever in terms of like he drops the title, but he doesn't. It's not the losing of the title, right? Okay, MJF's on to doing something else outside of the world title picture. But I did see someone suggest that MJF has to go away for a bit, not long. Maybe even you can have him just work as a commentator for a month or so, which I think would be incredibly popular. But whilst he's doing that, Cole wins the title off Joe. And you get the reverse of, hey, we should have a friendly fight for the title.
Ooh, I do like that.
It worked for their biggest show ever.
Indeed.
They did 70,000 people.
Not least because you could get a one-off poster where just in big letters, AEW for the belt, Joe Cole. Yeah.
I like Joe Cole. I was listening to him on the Peter Crouch podcast. Good bloke.
Yeah.
By all accounts.
Became a very industrious player
Good
as he got
pundit
older, didn't he?
as well.
Started off as like this youthful figure full of vim and vigour, but the older he got, the more he was one of those players you would never imagine evolve into a veteran presence.
No.
Yeah, he did. You wanted him in your dressing room, didn't you, Joe?
Great goal against Sweden in the 2006 World Cup. Just a shame he couldn't defend or had a good manager.
With apologies to the Hammers, not people that like our podcast.
Yeah,
but to West Ham fans, played in a remarkably likeable West Ham team. And I don't think they're one of the most popular sides for the neutrals, shall we say. Well, your dad's got a soft spot, hasn't he?
Yeah, my dad's an Hammer.
I don't think there's a lot to like about them a lot of the time, but I like that West Ham team.
Seth Fracker gives us our next question. Congratulations on fatherhood. Thank you, Seth. Do you think WWE will have Cody Rhodes cut a modern version of Hard Times leading up to a rematch with Roman Reigns?
Yes. What else is there left to do? Because they should have finished the story back in April.
Wrong. We will be talking about this on the SmackDown preview later on today, by the way.
You got to get there again.
Let it play out.
Look, I already know I'm going to be in attendance WrestleMania 4, and I imagine
I do as well.
going to graft to that as well.
I will be going there as well, one way or another.
So, nice that we'll all be there to watch it. But I would be amazed if you didn't lean in on it. The story, which obviously kind of became its own thing when Finish the Story became all about Cody winning the belt, if you recall, was actually 1 year earlier when he felt this frustration that he happened to never mention, that Dusty had held the belt without actually getting to hold the belt.
Yeah.
So I would be amazed if he didn't lean in on them. I expect him to, I don't know, find somehow be able to square the circle of being able to incorporate something like the polka dots back into his look for the night. There'll be lots of Dusty on the road to WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait.
No bad thing.
I think it's one of the greatest wrestling storylines ever, the Bloodline, and I think it's going to come to a fantastic completion at WrestleMania 40. And I think right now, genuinely, WWE, the Bloodline storyline right now has gone a bit off the rails. I will admit that. But the redemption arc for Cody and Roman Reigns' general story, just ignore Jim Uso having no bloody idea what he's doing, I think they, for me right now, were completely justified in what they did at WrestleMania 39. But I will admit I was in the crowd going, what the hell have you done? And I threw a rubber chicken. I'm not sure if you saw it. It's quite high up. Took me a while.
Yeah, like that paper plane at Wembley game. Cody's in better health somehow. The Bloodline is in worse. I think,
but we'll talk about this, mate.
Yeah, we'll have a shoot fight after the conference.
Vacant's manager gives us our final question today, and I knew this one would cheer us up because there's a question we both kind of weirdly hope for. Vacant's manager, right? Which NXT stars could possibly win the respective Royal Rumble matches in 2024? Well, it is, doing better ratings than AEW if you only take that last 15 minutes. So funny that people being like, here we go, what Dynamite rating did they do? Bollocks, they did slightly higher than NXT. Well, in the last 15 minutes they did more, so...
And that's what we've always counted, everybody knows that, yeah.
What did your overrun do? Because we did stop being so tribal. Guys, you can like more than one wrestling show. You can like 2.
That's the rule.
Actually, I like TNA now. You can like 3.
We've been explicitly clear about that from the start. Absolutely, and New Japan's potentially cooking again. No more than 4.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But then if we bring WCPW back, 5 times.
Stardom's kind of incredible all along.
Yeah.
Absolutely no more than 6.
MLW, let's not forget MLW and all this.
Yeah, we've always said 7, the Magnificent 7 of pro wrestling.
North Wrestling, we don't see that, it's just around the corner.
If you hate wrestling, then you hate all of these
companies. It's Tiffany Stratton is the answer, isn't it?
Tiffany Stratton is the answer. Yeah, we both said that way, sort of before we even came in the office, before the question was even asked.
Yeah.
We were big into, look, and she's had this fantastic week, but it's not a one-off.
No. And it's not her losing is no bad thing, in my opinion, to Becky Lynch.
I think she wins it back.
Yeah.
I think she beats Becky Lynch. I think she'll feature anyway. She was one of the various NXT wrestlers that have kind of been in a reverse takeover thing. They've been putting the NXT wrestlers in Raw crowds rather than putting WWE main roster people in NXT ones. I think it's just a way to bed these people in. the transition is very different than what it used to be between NXT and WWE. So I would expect quite a lot of NXT involvement in this year. And yeah, other than so in the women's division where Tiffany feels like a bit of a favourite, there is one guy that I think strategically they've kept out of storylines on NXT at the moment because they want to start getting you ready for him on the main roster, and that's Von Wagner.
Come on!
Unless Von himself is watching, I don't need to explain why that would be so cool. If there's a man that knows how to point at a sign, as long as you tell him to do that, he will do that better than anybody.
Yeah.
He will stand there and point at that sign. Frankly, unless you say, now leave the ring, Von, it's all he'll do.
Yeah. He's the only person who needs the rules of the Royal Rumble explained to him. Roxanne Perez, she was in the Royal Rumble this year, wasn't she?
We got one of the biggest pops of the night.
Would never rule her out. I think she's a sensational young talent. And if Tony D'Angelo makes an appearance or Stacks in the Royal Rumble next year, I'm going to rip my cock off on stream. It's going to happen.
Wesley or possibly Carmelo Hayes running through a good half an hour in there and making the final four. It'll be a strong night for them as baby faces as well.
Let's never rule out Bron Breakker.
No, spearing, as the guy that clears the ring as a bit of a monster figure with spears and that.
Who's your pick right now to win the Men's Royal Rumble?
Cody Rhodes.
LA Knight for me.
I think
Cody doesn't need it.
I think he's got Roman on the undercard LA Knight to ensure that the pop for Cody isn't diluted. He's a very good Rumble challenger, LA Knight, isn't he?
Yeah, good point. Right, anyway, let us know your thoughts on everything we discussed in the comment section. You can let us know on at WhatCulture WWE. You can follow him on there.
Michael Hamflett.
Follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCulture WWE. But for now, my thanks to Michael Hamflett. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.